If you're interested in astrology, spirituality, or what is written in the stars for you, today's guest, Sophie One, is one that you're going to want to pay attention to. She is an up and coming astrologer who has her own astrology app, REHA, REHA. She was just on Indian Matchmaking season 2, and she is in such high demand. She is founded in Vedic and Western astrology. She puts them together, uses some spirituality insights as well to help her clients navigate what's in their charts and what's in their soul's purpose, what's their blueprint for life, and helps them make decisions. So this is such an incredible person to learn from, especially if you're at all interested in the stars and astrology. You're going to want to geek out on this a little bit. So dive in, guys. Get comfortable. Here we go. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show, Sophie.
Hi, everyone.
I'm so excited to get into it with you today. Just jumping right into it, there's a lot of skeptics out there, especially if you live in Los Angeles. There's a big joke, if someone's into astrology, you kind of go the other way. It's a big common thing. And I think it's a little silly that people have that approach because it can do a lot for us. So for those who are new or skeptical to astrology, how would you define it? And, beyond just the daily horoscopes that pop up in the magazines and newspapers, what can it do for us?
Thank you so much for having me on the show. And I'm so excited to dive in because astrology is definitely like having a moment, especially the whole age of Aquarius. And in general, it's just so interesting because I really like to use astrology, as I was telling you previously, about having it be this like measuring stick to understanding like the patterns of what's going on in your life. And so like thinking about it as you would like how to measure, the length or width of something with a ruler. So the planets and like the cycles and motion of how the planets move are literally correlated patterns to like events that can happen in your life. And so if you really start to track the signs around you, if you start to track people's birthdays that you've been dating, like, oh, it's so interesting, I keep attracting like Pisces or like Capricorn. It's really about getting underneath the hood and understanding energetically, even from like a psychodynamic profile, is to, well, why? And like, what does this say about me? And so I always like to tell people that astrology is just simply the study of how we connect with the universe and what the universe is showing you about yourself. That's it. And so I think that people that are very like naysayer and they have a naysayer mentality about astrology just don't understand it. Or I've actually had clients that have had very negative experiences where maybe someone read their chart and they're like, oh, you're a bad person. And of course you're going to be like, this is fake, because and that's a horrible experience. But, it is essentially the blueprint of your soul. So I always like to say that it's literally the map of the sky the moment you were born. So if you imagined your soul picked a specific birth date, birth time, birth location, the parents you want to be born to, and at that exact moment you decided to enter into this realm, there was a photograph of the universe where all of the celestial bodies and the planets were in a specific placement. And that specific placement is your natal chart. And that's the map of your soul. And so it gives us a deeper understanding as to perhaps like, why did you pick that? Why did you pick this journey? And I know you've had such an incredible journey with your military career and now even what you're doing. And so it's like, okay, well, Amy, why did you specifically pick that? So being able to go in and really assess and give people an understanding so that they have, number one, more questions, insightful questions to ask themselves, right? So it's a deeply reflective tool. And number two, just a deeper understanding of acceptance. So it's okay that you had this experience, Amy. Your soul, for some reason, picked that, and that's okay. And just finding a deeper, like I said, acceptance and understanding. And especially if you're going through a really challenging time, it's not about blaming the cosmos, because there's no such thing as like, this is causing that, that's causing that. Granted, like energetically, we can feel, right, the planets and the celestial bodies around us. Obviously we can feel the sun. So to say like, oh yeah, we can't, they have no influence. Really? you when you go outside, you can't feel the sun. Like when people say that, I'm
Oh
like,
my gosh. Yeah, or
I
even
lit-
like just look at the ocean.
I
Like
know.
we know that the moon impacts the ocean and the
Yeah,
tide and all of that, but yet we assume it has no impact on us and we're
right.
completely made of water.
That's what I think.
Yeah.
Funny. I'm like, so you don't think like Venus, which you can literally see in the sky, you don't think that that's gonna have an impact on you? Like the sun, you don't think that impacts you? I mean, so whenever people try to like kind of poo-poo all over astrology, which I get because there are a lot of like frilly kind of like, in my opinion, I think these are for fun, like little horoscopes that you can like read in magazines. And it's like, it's like, oh, well, how could this like one paragraph relate to like millions and millions of the same people? Like that doesn't make sense. But I think also people don't understand that you don't just have one sign. You literally have 12 different signs. Your entire chart is so much more complex and complicated than just like your sun sign. And so a lot of people don't even understand that your chart is such a multifaceted, complicated little blueprint and mechanism of you. And so I do get a lot of pushback and skeptics that think it's either stupid or fake or whatever. But like, I think it's such an incredible tool to just find acceptance and understanding for yourself. And then number two, really being able to like challenge yourself and push yourself into like breakthroughs of like new level of growth when you're perhaps stuck in a place and you're like, oh, I need the answers. Why? And like having something to kind of reflect back, helpful things to kind of move you along. And so a lot of the client work I do, it's like I say it's like, like 10 hours of therapy in like one session because like we get right to it. I'm like, oh, I'm seeing you've got a debilitated moon. Let's talk about your mom trauma. It's like right there. Like we're not going to wait around for like 10 different sessions. We're just going to go straight into it. And you know what? Your soul picked that specific blueprint and that's okay. We can find acceptance in that. So that's kind of my long-winded answer to what astrology is and how it can actually be like such a helpful and incredible tool and just essentially how we're looking at it and why we're assessing it.
You know, one of the funny things that popped up for me while you were describing that is I always thought it was like kind of a fun little, silly thing. I was never poo-pooing it, but it just, I didn't ever take it seriously until I started reading books on it. And I just
Mm,
read a book recently. It's more of like a coffee table thing, but it's
yeah.
got every single day of the year. It has the astrology things around that date of birth.
Hmm.
And as I was reading through it, and I just for fun asked all my family and friends, what's your date of birth? What time were you born? And I started reading this book, and I'm like, this has every single one of you pegged. Like
Yeah.
even a girlfriend of mine like drinks a glass of wine or more or a bottle every single day. It was like the littlest details, like
Mm,
this date of birth may struggle with things like addiction and things that,
yeah.
so it was like really nailing it on the head for every single person. I'm like, there's something to this. There is really something to this. Even qualities about myself when I was on my
Hmm.
own date of birth, I was like, holy crap, like everything it had was like me to a T. So
Yeah.
people can poo-poo it, but like it's all fun and games until it's legitimate, right? Like it's
Yeah.
all fun and games until it's pegging you.
Yeah, for
So,
sure.
I think there's something to it.
Yeah.
So in terms of your adventure getting into this,
Hmm.
how did you stumble into astrology? And then when I was on your website, I saw that there's like different types of
Hmm.
astrology. So how did you end up picking the one that you chose?
Yeah. So I stumbled upon it on like accident, as like anything that's divinely orchestrated happens. But I noticed that I was introduced to it by a friend who I met through someone I was dating. And I don't know why, but I have dated multiple people with the birthday December 26th. It's like so weird, like back to back to back. And I'm like, this is really weird. That's not normal. And so I was introduced to it by this friend who was like, oh, like, do you know anything about astrology? And I was like, no, what's that? And it's so funny because this friend actually is a psychotherapist. So she was studying astrology to help her clients and to really try to like help dive into like their insights and deeper knowing and like a little bit less of a like high pressure situation and more of a playful, let's try to like get out of this like straight into the trauma and like let's try to like make it connected to something bigger and you know than ourselves, because it can be really overwhelming. And so she's the one that introduced me to it. And I was like, wow, this is so fun. This is so cool. Like this really resonates. And then my original background is in fashion merchandising and like retail merchandising, which is a totally different world. And in that world, what you do is you assess patterns. You assess patterns, sales trend. That's like, that was my whole job. And so for me, I thought that's so weird. All these patterns around me, like I keep dating these Capricorns. Why is that? Specifically December 26th. Why is that? I had so many good girlfriends where their birthdays were December, Sagittarius. I was attracting so many Sagittarius. I was like, this is so weird. This month is filled with birthdays where there's just like really not that many October birthdays for me. And I was like, that's weird. And so as I began studying, it revealed these patterns. And like, I really urge anybody that's watching this that like doesn't really know that much about astrology, take head count and take stock of the people around you, your closest friends, the people you've dated. You will find a pattern. It will be very clear of like, wow, I do actually have a lot of friends and birthdays around like these specific months. And so I thought that that was so cool. It was like, whoa, you can learn so much about yourself just by assessing these birthdays. And what I loved about birthdays is it's like a personality test, but there's no subjective lens. So the birthday is the birthday. The information is the information. Like the day you picked is the day you picked. And there's like kind of no, getting out of that. Whereas in, let's say if you take a Myers-Briggs test or the Enneagram or whatever, you have to answer a bunch of questions. And like, that's already a flawed method of understanding the self, because you're gonna literally self-select what you think is your personality versus what your mom thinks, what your best friend thinks is going to answer that questionnaire for you. So I kind of like this like level of detachment of like you picked what you picked because that's what your soul picked. And so I thought that was really cool. So that's how I first got into it. I was like, oh my God, it was just a passion. I started reading for friends and family as a pure hobby and like going to these workshops in New York. I was living in New York at the time and got really good at reading people. And my friends were like, you should, like, you're so good. Can I refer people to you? I was like, I don't do this professionally. But then that really started taking off. And then I got the idea about creating an astrology app. And I was like, oh, this would be really interesting and cool. Like I could totally do this. And so I started doing market research and found that the astrology market in India is a $10 billion market. And I was like, that's an insane market.
I'd like a slice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, what the heck is going on in India? And so then I started researching Indian astrology, which is Vedic astrology, and then like really evolved my practice out of Western astrology into Vedic astrology. I started off Western because that's what's popular in the US, and then moved into Vedic. And what's really fascinating is like roughly 99% of marriages that are matched in India are done through the birth charts.
Wow.
Yeah, 99%. That's a really high percentage.
Huge number.
Huge. And so it's like, okay, there's something here with compatibility. And so then I started studying Vedic astrology and trying to understand the compatibility component of like, how are people matchmaking each other? And like, this is an ancient philosophy that has not died, because Vedic astrology first really came up around like 500 BC, when the discovery of the Vedas. So it goes back ancient India, right? And it's existed for centuries, longer than that. And so I was like, there's something here. There's something here. You don't, something that holds up for that long, there must be something there. So that's essentially how I ended up on my little journey, and then ended up going to India for a few years. Ended up on Indian Matchmaking as an astrologer.
I saw that season 2. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. And that was really fun. And so that's just how my journey, but I really, when I looked at, there's something called astrocartography. Astrocartography is looking at a map of the world to see where your astrological lines go through. And it's really cool because before I even like made the move to India and knew anything about astrocartography, That was like a new tool that I was introduced to. This woman that I got a reading from was like, "You have a destiny in India." And I'm like, "What? How did you know I was moving there?" But it just felt really aligned. And I really truly believe like my soul wanted to take me to India. So that's essentially my little story of how I got into astrology.
Wow, it's incredible. I mean, and even all of the points around the different types of astrology that exist, Western
Mm,
versus Vedic, et cetera. And there's more, right? I just recently got an incredible tattoo from a Tibetan Buddhist monk that gave it to me based on Tibetan astrology, which is
yeah.
really beautiful. Um, I think Western society has done a lot for us, and there's been a lot of modernization of things that we really need as a society. However, I am such a believer and a fan of looking at our ancestors and
Hmm.
tribal communities and the peoples who have given us gifts that have lasted like a long, long time, and like just to honor that work. And I think this is one of those areas where it's like we may not want to try to put a Western spin on something that's tried and true.
Yeah.
I want to talk to you about there's these historical contexts, these
Hmm.
historical records that demonstrate things like the Egyptian pyramids,
Mm.
Stonehenge, like all these like really historic artifacts that we have in these buildings and structures that are allegedly built to match astrology, and that there's this incredible history around the world where astrology has been used in governance of our world for as far back as we have any evidence for. And
Yeah.
yet somehow it disappeared from at least our Western world. And we've kind of erased that being part of our governance and our society. What do you think that is for? Like, why do you think we've kind of moved away from astrology being more mainstream like it used to be? I mean, to the point where
Mm.
they were building pyramid structures in alignment with the star system. Why do you think we've moved away from that?
Yeah, I mean, well, you had the rise of the Christian religion, which and Catholicism, and it's so interesting because astrology, you really don't answer to anyone but yourself and the planet. So it's really this
Mm,
connection you have to the bodies of energy in the sky. Whereas in when you have like any kind of consecrated form of deeply steeped, organized religion, such as, and I'm not trying to poo-poo over
yeah.
the Christian religion because I know there are so many wonderful people that follow the philosophies, the Christian philosophy, and I believe that that philosophy is so so deeply, profoundly moving. But when you really think about these constructs that were created, the main church, they were really wanting to control the people and like really wanting to concentrate certain power. And so when you have things like astrology out, it really promotes the belief that the heavens you are part of the heavens and the heavens are within you. And that philosophy is really prevalent. Whereas in Christian philosophy, it's like, no, there's one God and there's like the head of the church and the king and the pope. And like, that's really the person you answer to. So when you kind of take that away, so then that removes agency into really being able to follow kind of this pathway of like, oh, I'm wired like this and I'm deeply steeped like this. And so that definitely has a huge part of it. And it's so interesting what you said about there's so many different types of astrology because there are. I mean, and we have astrology that really existed in like ancient Babylonia, but then we see astrology existed in ancient China, like Chinese astrology. That's a whole nother system.
Well,
Like,
I think didn't even the three wise men follow a North Star to get to baby
exactly,
Jesus? I mean, I
exactly.
think, we've done this divisive
Mm-hmm.
activity to like separate us all out and be like, oh, I'm Christian, so I can't do that. And it's like, well,
Mm-hmm.
actually, look at the three wise men. They were following a star, which means
Yeah.
that it's possible for religion or, philosophies to coexist together instead of
Mhm.
being divisive. You can use astrology in everything, including religion.
Yeah, totally. And I think that and so it's kind of a shame because you really like read about these famous astrologers that were essentially persecuted and then executed for their beliefs. And like I think that in any form of philosophy, you're always kind of testing out a truth. And that truth is always it's always kind of under this like examination, and that's okay. But like, I think it's really sad when someone has to die around it. You know, it's like, but I think that everything can coexist beautifully. And some of the, like I said, not trying to like poo poo over anyone's religion or anything like that, but I've had like Christian, really faithful Christians come to me and feel like I don't, I think this is wrong for me to do. And I'm like, why? I'm not saying you can't love your God or love Jesus or anything like that. Like, you don't have to pick this or that. This is just a study of like yourself, and
Uh,
that's it. Like, you don't have to
yeah.
believe like, you don't have to believe this or that. Like, it's really just a study of yourself. And so it's really interesting. But like, I believe that that was taken to the extreme. And it wasn't just like astrology that got the axe. It was anything that, any kind of questioning around, we are the authority. And you see that even in like, communist China, they got rid of all forms of religion. It was like, if you're practicing Buddhism, nope, because it's undermining any kind of like control and power. During that time with the Christian Crusades and all, like there was this huge power control. That's what it was. I mean, if you have any kind of violence, you have to ask yourself, well, why is that? Why?
Hmm.
Most of the time, you can easily map it back to a control of power.
Mm.
It's all goes back to power. Someone's hungry for power, someone's greedy for power, and I'm just calling it how it is, right? And so it's just fascinating to see how all the there are so many different sects of astrology. Like my friend was telling me about esoteric astrology and like astrology that goes with Kabbalah, which is like a whole different,
Wow.
yeah. And so there are just so many different branches and like there's also Jungian astrology because Carl Jung studied astrology, the famous psychologist who we all know of and like take seriously. So whenever these naysayers are like, "Oh, it's so stupid," I'm like, "Did you think Carl Jung was stupid?"
Yeah, I just looked up while you were
Uh-huh.
sharing a list of philosophers that are famous and well known for using astrology in their practice, and it's like all the big people. So Carl Jung,
Yeah.
Aristotle,
Yeah.
Al-Kindi, which was an Islamic philosopher. I mean, so
Hmm.
it really does span across all religions, all cultures, all parts of the world. Every single entity that you can think of in the world has used it in some way, shape, or form in our history. So
Yeah.
it's really interesting.
Yeah.
One of the things I thought was like so fascinating
Hmm.
is something that just happened recently to me. I wanted to know more about myself, and I knew I was a Virgo because my birthday is August 31st,
Hmm.
but I did not know what time I was born. And I was born in England, and I looked on my birth certificate and it's not listed on there. And so I went down this rabbit hole like, how do I get what time I was born? And my mom couldn't remember. So I went on this Easter egg hunt, and I found that no birth certificates in the United Kingdom have it on their birth certificates. So I really had to think about that. Like, well, why is that? And obviously, that has something to do with the religious wars in the United Kingdom. They didn't want, as religion came in, they didn't want people to be able to use astrology. So they just took it off the birth certificates. But then I reached out to the hospital I was born at, and I'm in my 30s, and they destroy records after 25 years. So I was like, oh crap, I may never know what time I was born. And I requested the records just in case they had
Yeah.
them. And I got lucky. 3 months later, they sent me an email back and said they had my records. So I was able to go and dig through my mom's records, her medical records, and I found it. And I got my sister and I's birth time. We're not twins, but they had hers in there too. And so I found out I was born 12/25, and I got so excited to be able to finally
Mm.
use that information because it's such a key component of being able to learn this information about yourself. And I have yet to do like a full reading with someone like you, but like the stuff I've been able to find out even from like apps or whatever, I'm
Yeah.
excited to try your app, has been really, really cool. And it does really help in terms of learning more about yourself and how you make decisions and how you approach things. So it's one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on the show, because I think it's just such a fascinating way, as we talk about getting to know oneself, reconnecting with yourself and your spirit and all of that. It's a great tool for that. So yeah, anyway, I thought it's really fascinating. And I got really excited about the whole time thing.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I'm so glad you found your time because I have a lot of clients that will come to me and they don't have their time. And then I have to use other tools to like help them. And like, you can do like this, like some astrologers think you can kind of like, oh, go back and like you try to figure out your time. And I'm like, in my opinion, I'm like, listen, if it doesn't show up for you, it doesn't show up for you, and that's okay. Like
Mm,
people that are adopted that don't have records. And so,
yeah.
you know, I always tell people, like, you still can get information, but the time people are like, oh, is it really that important? I'm like, yes, for the actual chart, it's so important because the time sets the tone for the you have to think of like the blueprint. Where are you going to draw all your lines? Like if you're, let's say like your chart looked like a Monopoly board and everyone has to start on go. Well, let's say the time dictates which square you're actually starting on. Maybe you're not starting on the square that like is the green square. Maybe you're going to start on that far left, red square. We don't know. And so that literally lays out the foundation, the true foundation of your entire chart. So that birth time is pretty important. But I don't want to discourage people from like looking up their stuff because the planets, they don't move that quickly. But some people that are born on the cusp, you'll see like, okay, I can't use this information. And then what's great is there's so many other amazing tools that you can use. Like there's the 52 playing card system, which is actually, in my opinion, the oldest spiritual tool in existence. So like modern tarot card, and this is totally could be a separate conversation, not to like derail us from astrology, but like it goes well with astrology, actually, the card system. So the playing cards no one can actually trace playing card history because they're that old.
Wow.
And yeah, they're that old. But like it's interesting because the cards mirror our calendar. Like you've got 12 royal cards, 12 months, 4 suits, 4 seasons. So it's really interesting. 52 playing cards, 52 weeks. Um,
Oh my
and
gosh, I'd never even put that those two
Mhm.
things together. That's
Yeah.
crazy.
And so there's a lot of astrological influence with the cards as well. And so for people, and you have a whole spread of cards depending on your birthday. So for people that don't have their full birth time, I always tell them like that's okay. Like we can still do a full blown reading, getting down because I'll use you use the card system, and that's a whole different system. We know roughly where all the planets are in what sign. We might not know the houses, but we got the signs. And then numerology is also something interesting that takes account the numbers of your birth date. So it depend, and which is like I said, the philosophy of you picked a specific date for a reason. And so you take those numbers, and it's like those numbers are your personal cosmic code. And so, like, you are literally taking those numbers and just like trying to decipher out, okay, here's what's going on in terms of my blueprint and what's happening around me and what's my pathway. So, my best friend is a numerologist, and she's the one that taught me that. So, like, for people that don't have that, I'm like, oh, that's okay. But I will say the time really is that important. And like people are like, I think it was around 7 p.m. Like I've had people do, I mean, like, no, you need to actually go back and check. And then of course they're like, oh yeah, just kidding. It was like, 4 a.m. And I was like, that's really different. Like you have a whole different reading.
That's how I caught that my mom didn't actually know because I asked my mom once and she
Hmm.
said like 8:30 something. And
Yeah.
then I forgot what she said, so I reached out to her again and she said a completely different time. And I was like,
Hmm.
"Mom, this is my whole life. Like you can't get this wrong." So I couldn't trust my mom, and God bless her, she was doing her best to remember, but she couldn't remember. And thank God I caught that she was just winging it. And
Yeah.
so I went to go get the actual time, and I'm so glad I did because she didn't say that time at all. So
Yeah.
it's definitely good to get it. One of the questions I want to ask you, I'm so glad you brought up the calendar system because
Yeah.
I just recently learned that our society used to operate off of a completely different calendar system where it was like 30 days in each month and there
Hmm.
was 13 months instead of 12.
Hmm.
What are your thoughts around that?
So that aligns really nicely with the moon cycle and like the moon. I mean, and that was like a farmer, like we used to do that for farming reasons. And that's actually what astrology was really. I mean, and it makes sense because like the way that we're doing it, we kind of like have like we're kind of mishmashing it to make it work for us, right? Especially with this like leap year situation. And like some months they're like 31, sometimes it's 28, sometimes it's 30, 30, 31. Like it's just like, what? That doesn't even
Yeah.
make sense. So it'd be so much easier if it was like the 13 months it's 28 days. Like that actually aligns. It's so funny because 28 days is the like feminine cycle, right? Your
Mm.
menstruation
Yeah,
cycle.
yeah.
And so it's really interesting that like we actually had our calendars aligning to the divine feminine. 13, by the way, is the goddess number. It's the divine feminine number. 28 days, that's usually the average span of a cycle for a woman. And then now we've shifted to this like kind of Frankenstein method, which like, listen, I mean, it's working right now, so I'm not gonna like poo-poo all over it, but it would be really great if we had aligned, we didn't shift. And so I definitely think that that makes more sense. And astrologically, when you think of it, would be so perfectly coordinated with the moon cycle, right? And so, and that's actually why astrology was so prevalent back in the day, was because that's how farmers literally kept track of the crop cycles. And like it was so critical because farmers provided food. How are you going to eat? We didn't have this like modern technology being able to really assess everything now you can assess in such a controlled environment. It was really up to the heavens and the star and the whatever the sky brought. And so when you really want to look up accuracy of like the new moon, the full moon, you go to the farmer's almanac. And like there's actually a whole philosophy around farming that goes with astrology that is still practiced in India. And like a lot of really, really traditional farmers still very much use the moon cycle calendar as a way. But that's what that essentially is. It's aligning to the moon cycles. And like that makes sense because the moon is the closest celestial body to Earth. And the moon has such an important presence in our world. I mean, it really controls the tides of the water. We are made up of like 70%, 70 plus, I guess, depending on like your whole body mass situation. But like we're mostly made up of water. So to think that the moon doesn't matter, it matters massively, especially when it comes to, like I said, agriculture and the crops. And so aligning to that really makes a lot of sense. And like in the Eastern world, you still have the lunar calendar that's very prevalent. And so it's really interesting to have shifted from this very feminine, matriarchal kind of, way of doing things, which in my opinion makes sense because I mean, women birth life. Like when you farm, the farmers are birthing new life. That's what plants are. And then like that's
Mm.
rejuvenating us to then move into this, like I said, kind of Frankenstein calendar system of what the Western world has brought us, which is the Gregorian calendar, which is fine, is interesting. But there's definitely a lot of hot buzz conversation around that. But yeah, so that's a little
Yeah.
bit of how we moved away from that. But it really was, we were right on a moon cycle situation. And then even the numbers are like so powerful.
The more
And
you start putting these dots together, I
mm,
mean, the more the astrology just like makes sense, even from a functional standpoint. I mean, there has to be a reason that the pyramids are in perfect alignment, right? There has to be a reason that if you look at the entire world and where some of these massive
mhm.
architectural anomalies are, they're aligned perfectly with the astrology system. So it's obviously there for a reason. It's got something right about it for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I'd love to learn a little bit more about your process, for those who are interested in maybe getting a reading with you. What is that like? Like, what does it entail? What does it cover to reach out to you and get a reading with you?
Yeah, so you just would book on my calendar. I have to have your information, the birth date, birth time, birth location. And then, like I said, for people that don't have the birth time, that's okay. I use a lot of other tools. And then we really dive into the chart. And what's really cool about the chart is it shows you all the different areas of your life. And so when you really think about astrology, you think about all the main areas of what your life is composed of. So I always like to tell people, it's like a story, reading your story. I'm just a translator, the messenger, the person reading your book. You are the main character in your story. The planets or the celestial bodies represent the what in your life. Okay. The signs, okay, so we have like Aries, Virgo, Leo. That's gonna tell us the how. And then you've got the houses where there's 12 houses, and it covers everything from like the house of self, house of marriage, house of your career, house of your family, house of your, things that you might be addicted to. Like there's like kind of everything. House of sex, like how you relate to intimately to other people. So the houses tell us the where. So we got the who, the what, the how, the where, and then the why. Very important. It's like, why are we doing all this anyways? Is the karmic nodes. So karmic nodes are not actual planets or celestial bodies. It is two mathematical calculations of the moon. So you've got the north node of the moon, you've got the south node of the moon. In Vedic astrology, it's called Rahu Ketu. In Western astrology, it's north node, south node. That tells us the why. Why did you decide to reincarnate here? Why did you come in? What's the bigger lesson your soul is trying to learn? And then what are your past life gifts? Like, what kind of past lives did you have? So I personally love Vedic astrology and practice Vedic astrology, which is what I'll read, unless you're like, I really want the Western version, Sophie. I just don't resonate with that. That's cool because that was my original form. But I love that because the whole purpose of having an astrology reading is about understanding your karma, your reincarnation lesson, like literally the like existential question of like, why am I here? And that's what the chart shows you. And so I want to point out that, and even for yourself, your Vedic chart can look very different from your Western chart. So in Vedic astrology, you're actually double Leo. Like you got a lot
I
of
am?
Leo. Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. So that's what's really interesting. It's like, and that really puts people in this like, whoa, what? Like, no, especially if you're like, I'm like a Virgo. And I'm like, and it's so funny because you got Virgo placements, girl. Like I'm seeing your Virgo energy in your Vedic chart. It's just gets expressed differently. And so it's really funny to like see people's reactions and kind of see them take it all in because it can shift and change. And it doesn't mean this is wrong, that's right, or that's wrong and that's right. It's just, okay, this resonates. That's cool. This doesn't resonate. That's
Oh my
okay.
gosh, keep going. Like I'm a Leo? Whoa.
Yeah, you've got like so much big Leo energy. And it kind of makes sense because you're at this juncture in your life where you're really showing up. I mean, even just doing this podcast and doing this show and really taking like a leadership role and really like being the person that's leading. And like Leo is king queen energy. So people that have big Leo placements, especially like someone like yourself, and it's all in the 11th house. The 11th house, by the way, is the house of public networks. It's the house of like publicity, being seen. So anytime I see somebody that's got a lot of Leo energy in the 11th house, which is the house of your social networks, being received by like a bigger audience, it's also technology. It's also money, then I see, oh, this person was like destined to be in the limelight, like some kind of limelight facing situation. Like they're meant to be seen, they're meant to be heard, they're like meant to lead. And so it actually really goes nicely with what you're doing. And so that's what's really interesting. And so you'll see a lot of cross references in the chart, like Western versus Vedic. Like in your Western chart, all that energy for you is showing up in the 10th house. The 10th house is the original, it's the house of career and like really being seen. Like you have a lot of 10th house, 11th house. And so your Virgo energy is concentrated in there. But like, so it's just kind of cool to compare side by side, like, oh, and I know like you're like, oh, I really resonated with the Virgo. And it's like, I can see that you still have Virgo in your Vedic chart. It just happens to be that there are different planets. Like in your chart, your Virgo energy is coming through from Venus and Mercury. And Venus for you, according to Vedic astrology, is one of your most important planets because in Vedic astrology, your rising, your chart ruler, the planet that rules your chart, like your most important planet, is Venus. And it happens to be in Virgo in Vedic astrology. And they say that the rising sign and the moon in Vedic astrology are the two most important. That's actually what you really got to look at. And so it's just a different school of thought. But I always reassure clients all rivers lead to the same ocean. So you're going to get very similar information. It's just kind of expressed in different ways. And a lot of people get very like flustered of like, I don't know what to pick. And like a lot of times I just like to cherry pick what I like. I'm like, you know what? I'm really resonating with my Cancer energy. Like, I'm totally resonating with that and then sometimes I'm like, you know what? I'm really resonating with my Scorpio moon. That's what I am in Vedic. And so that's cool. It's just about, like I said, self-expression, self-acceptance, and diving deeper into like, okay, what's going on here? I will say what's the same for you is that you were born right on a new moon. So because your sun sign and your moon sign are the same, and that's consistent. So you're like double Virgo in Western astrology, in Vedic astrology, double Leo. And so that tells me, okay, she's a new moon baby. New moon babies are like the innovators. They're just like, unlike, they're almost like ahead of the curve, like ahead of your time. And you just do things in a way that are so different. So people that are born have like new moon baby energy, they've got like a ton of this like interesting, extraordinary reinvention of the self. Like they have to go through that. And so, like I said, new moons are really what start the moon cycle. And it's all about new beginnings. And so new moon babies, they have a lot of these like interesting junctures in their life where it's like, wow, this is like, I'm like really reinventing the self and like this whole new chapter. But they're also, like I said, ahead of the curve, the innovator. So that's something that is very consistent in both your Vedic and your Western chart.
It's just,
Mhm.
this is so fascinating to me.
Mhm.
I think also, the beautiful thing that this can do for people, if they're on healing journeys, especially, is it can just give them some perspective shifts. Also it can be empowering,
Mhm.
it can be insightful. It can help them process some stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really, really powerful. One of the things that I wanted to touch on with you is using this practice in mental health. And
Mhm.
I know you mentioned earlier you have a friend who's a psychotherapist who uses this.
Yeah.
Which ways do you see this being supportive to people who are dealing with mental health stuff?
I think that there are a couple ways that I really have seen it being used. So I was introduced to, like I said, to astrology through a psychotherapist who was literally using this to help her clients. And a lot of people deal with um, feeling like either a lack of belonging or they feel this lack of like being heard and seen. So I think that it's such a supportive tool for being able to pinpoint why you might be feeling the way you're feeling without having to like really put it out there of like this caused this, of like, hey, this is just the energy blueprint and it's okay. I also think it's really great for self-discovery of like asking yourself questions, right? And the answer can be no, that doesn't resonate. And that's cool. Like, but astrology is such an incredible tool for understanding like where your talents might be. And like, I think a lot of times we get misled and we're out of alignment because society puts, especially Western and American culture, puts this pressure of like, you work hard, you earn money. It's such a capitalistic, right? Whereas in Eastern philosophy is all about like health and like it's not so focused. It wasn't originally so focused on that, but we have this pressure of like earning and building kind of this like American dream. And that's like, it's such a high pressure thing that is ingrained in us, but that's actually not natural. And so I could look at someone's chart who's been forcing a pathway, especially of like, oh, you're working a boring finance job. Sorry to the finance people, but you're working a boring
We need you.
we do need you, but you're working a finance job that's completely out of alignment because you were told at an early age that your number one priority is to be a breadwinner and earn money. So then you've like pigeonholed yourself into this pathway. You've been handcuffed by the money. And where, if I look at your chart, I'm like, wow, you're actually a really artistic person that needs creative outlets. And so a lot of people will get stuck in specific life situations and not understand why am I not happy here? I literally, and like one of my best friends is like this, where I'm like, every single thing you manifested in college has happened. You are living the life that you literally made. I remember talking to you as a 20-year-old and you're literally living the same life you specifically manifested, but deeply unhappy. And it's just like, well, let's look at what's going on in the chart. And she's actually somebody that's like really meant to come into a place of deep nurture. And like maybe even for you, me reaffirming, hey, Amy, like you're actually really meant to be seen. Like you are meant to have this public facing brand. You're meant to be out there. You're meant to be like really, really like leading and putting yourself out there in like a really big way in a media public presence kind of capacity is something that's like deeply affirming versus, you know, kind of just like going through and like I don't say talking about your feelings because it's very valid and like we need that. Like we need cognitive behavioral therapists that will hold space for us when we feel alone. Like that is so necessary. But also it's really great to have um a tool that can objectively point out things that are like little nuggets and seeds that drop into your mind of like, oh, and I find that when I work with people that feel really stuck, I'm like, hey, did you by any chance know that in your chart? This is an outlet in a vehicle, or they get really complacent in a place, or, you know, they have massive relationship issues and they're like, why? And then I look and I'm like, oh my God, this is part of your reincarnation journey. I'm not saying you should accept abuse or accept unhappiness, but it's like, hey, the hardest area you're going to have to work is this area. Guess what? We all have an area. It's going to be
Uh-huh.
different for everybody. And then finding gratitude for what? Okay, thank you so much, soul, for picking that instead of feeling like just so much frustration and hatred and anger of like, oh, like, why do I keep ending up in these situations having this? It's like the universe is going to keep repeating a lesson over and over and over again until you find a different route and you find a different path of acceptance and love and compassion for the self. But that's all honestly what it boils down to. And that's something that I've seen therapists have used of like, hey, like you're a Pisces. Did you know that Pisces are actually like visionaries and really creative, but also really sensitive? And like, that's okay. And like, let's like work with that. And how do you feel about that? Especially if a client is someone that is, having a hard time opening up, having a hard time opening up, having a hard time feeling seen and heard. It's a really interesting tool and it's supposed to be fun. Like all these like frilly, you know, frivolous, like little horoscopes. Like, I don't know, but I mean, I still think they're fun to read. Am I going to take it like super seriously? No, but like they're really fun. And so it just gives you a different tool to really help find that acceptance and in a different capacity.
I love that it also opens this doorway of like possibility too, and
Mm.
in your relationships.
Yeah.
My son, I have a 16-year-old son. He was born February 16th, and he's super deeply emotional, and everything is super serious. Knowing that about him,
Mhm.
obviously, I know my son.
Yeah.
Knowing that like it's an affirmed thing, like I'm not
Mm.
just sensing that about him, like it's a legitimate thing for people born on that day, just kind of helps you be armed with another way to approach a situation. So it
Mhm.
can be, I have found it to be pretty recently as I've been digging into this and kind of affirming like the validity of astrology and like how on point it can be.
Mhm.
It's been so helpful just in prescribing for me an approach in my relationships with people. And so I've been using it that way, just like, you know, when I'm interacting with someone, what's your birthday, you know, and I'm like, oh my gosh, do you resonate with these things, you know, about your birthday? Yes, I do. Okay, cool. I almost never get no, you know, when I'm reading out of this book that I've been using and talking to people. And it just is really helpful because just like how there's different learning styles,
Mhm.
and, you know, some people are
Totally.
visual, some people are, you know, learn audibly. There's different styles and approaches to dealing with people too in other capacities. So, you know,
Mhm.
this is one of those tools where it helps describe or prescribe, you know, an approach to dealing with someone and giving grace for things that are just inherent about them. Like, you know, my
Mhm.
son happens to be very sensitive. Knowing that, I'm able to kind of be mindful with my words and my approach and make sure he understands where I'm coming from instead of him being so defensive. So it's been a really incredible tool for relationship building.
Yeah, no, I love that. And like I had a mom like comment and like post something where she was like, I used your astrology app and like I actually did the compatibility with my daughter. And it's so cool how we like knew each other in a past life and like how, like the capacity and like what we're learning from each other. Because every single person that you meet in this lifetime, I really believe that you have had some kind of karmic interaction in a previous lifetime. You've known them. And some people, it's like 2 seconds of a meeting and we don't even know the extent of capacity of how that person, that one, like that 2 second moment, like it's like butterfly effects off something else. But like with our children, especially, it's like so there's so much karma. And so it's really, really cool to see and understand, like, oh, this is why. This is maybe a theory of why, right? Because we don't know what you don't know. But this is maybe an interesting theory as to like how we knew each other and why we have come into each other's life, and like why your son picked you as his mom. And so that's something that actually can be deeply healing. Like personally for me, that was so deeply healing of like, oh, I specifically picked this and this is why. And I think that that's like if for every relationship, really having that understanding. But at the end of the day, like our main goal, and everyone has the same goal, is like just to feel deeply loved, to love and feel deeply loved. That's really like that's the goal everyone's working towards, right? Even if you're like, oh no, I just really want more power, more money. Well, why? So that people will love you. That's like, right? It always comes back to that. And I think astrology is like such a cool and fun and interesting way to like understand how patterns might connect. And if you're like, oh, yes, I believe that, that's great. And if you're like, no, I don't buy into that, that's cool too, because there's so many cool theories and thoughts around that. But now that you know your son's birthday, you can dive in and be like, oh, okay, this birthday specifically connects to my birthday like this. And that's really interesting. And so whenever I read for children, a lot of times parents are like, they like want to know so much about their child. And I'm like, what's actually really, really best to know about your child is how you can support them. So if you know, oh, your child's like actually deeply sensitive, really, really sensitive energetically, I'm like, you can really help equip them with like, other like methods of healing, like sound therapy, crystals, and all that kind of stuff. And I know people are like, oh, that's kind of stupid. I'm like, that's not stupid at all. Sound has vibration. Like, that's a proven thing. Crystals
Yeah.
have a vibration. That's a proven thing. Like,
We're dispelling all those rumors on my show.
yeah. And that's what I love about the
Yeah.
show. And what's so amazing is like, there is no such thing as stupid. I think the only thing that's stupid is being closed off to like anything that's new that you don't know anything about. But that's what I think astrology is actually really helpful to all my parents out there is don't be afraid to get a reading about your child because you might hear things you don't want to hear. Use that reading as a way of like, hey, I see that like my child's struggle is here. How can I best support him or her? How can I best be the parent of like really supporting the life path they've picked? And of course, every parent wants their child to be happy and love. Like that's it. That's all you want. And so understanding the elements, right? And supporting. And sometimes I'm like, I wish my parents knew that like I was granted, they knew I was a deeply sensitive child, but like really having that like affirmed and being like, okay, she's just a deeply sensitive child. But then like she's got Leo energy. So it's okay to put her into like dance class and all this stuff where she's going to like, do her Leo thing. And probably same for you. You would have had such a different upbringing with like, oh, like Amy really needs to be supported like this. And these are like energies and elements in her chart. And so it's just really interesting to kind of look at it that way versus like guessing game. Yeah, I think I'm going to put them in soccer because that's what every other kid's doing. But what if your kid's like actually an artist and doesn't want to go to soccer?
That's right. Yeah, amen to that.
Yeah.
Well, I would love to know as we move towards wrapping up here for the day, what predictions do you have or insights do you have for this month or this year or this season, however you want to shake it out? I think it'd be really fun to chat about that a little bit.
Yeah. Well, we actually just came out of a really intense season. March for a lot of people was very unnerving, and it makes sense because we were in eclipse season. So the eclipse happened twice a year. Every year it happens twice a year. And it's so funny because historically eclipses were seen as like this like warning sign. A lot of natural disasters end up happening around eclipses. Like I said, it's a high correlative pattern
Wow.
that farmers have observed.
Yeah.
A lot of like the impact on animals were also observed. It's so crazy because like in March, I had several friends whose like beloved animals and pets passed. But like March in general was eclipse season. We had double retrograde energy, which was Mercury in retrograde. Mercury is the planet of plans, your logistics, like contracts, that was retrograde, so it looked like it was moving backwards. It's not really great to push along plans then. And then Venus was in retrograde. Also, just not good for trying to push like anything big through, and having a lot of like love stuff come up, relationship stuff. So that was last month, which I'm like, okay, guys, that is behind us. This month is so much of a better energy because we're out of eclipse season. We're out of double retrograde energy, which is awesome. And so everything's direct. And like April, I mean, and we really only have like like a week left of April, but April should have been a lot better where you're starting to feel more momentum. Specifically for this week, it's really interesting because we have Saturn, the planet of discipline, hard work, boundaries. It's also a signifier of karma, conjunct. That means it's next to Venus, which is the planet of love, relationships, and money. And that's like happening this week, like right now. That's why I was like,
Well, I
oh,
love
so interesting.
money.
Yeah, we love
Yeah.
money. Yeah, you're supposed to make a lot of it, by the way, Amy.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
in your
I
chart.
won't say no.
Yeah. But like, so it's really about getting very serious about your values, about your relationships. And then that's also conjunct the North Node, which is karma and destiny. So if you're in alignment, you'll have like little miracles happening. If you're not in alignment, you're gonna have things poop, like God, universe, your higher self is gonna try to realign you this week. And then we have the new moon that's happening on Sunday. It's in the sign of Taurus. So Taurus is actually all about the material realm. It's beauty, it's luxury, money. Like I said, it's also relationships. So that new moon is happening. So for, those of you that or follow the moon cycles, it's really important to like set new intentions. But that's kind of what's happening really for the rest of April. And then as we get into the summer seasons, which really nice is like we don't have any kind of insane astrological like double eclipse, double retrograde kind of energy, but you will start to feel the effects of when the second eclipse season comes around. Kind of feel like it's really March, April are kind of the two ones. And then the summertime, I don't want to say you see a slowdown, but you don't see as many like, oh my God, like why are things like so crazy right now in the universe? Like, ah. And then you have the second series of eclipse, which happens in September, October. I want to say, I gotta look at when it's actually happening specifically for 2025. But we end up okay, so it looks like it is happening. I'm looking at my laptop right now because I didn't prepare the specific.
No, this
Okay,
is good. You can do it all
September.
real time.
It's September 7th and September. So September is a huge month for us. So you kind of have a nice little window of
Yeah.
reprieve where it shouldn't be that insane. It really should. Like March was the insane month. And I feel like so many people were really feeling March. You get through the summer, enjoy your summer. My best friend was like, we only have like a certain limited number of summers in our life. And I was like, that's a little depressing, but it just tells you like really embrace summer. And then September, be prepared to be inducted into your next major, like, okay, shit might be hitting the fan for you. In numerology, September actually is the pinnacle of the month. So it's like just a really supercharged month, but that's also when the next eclipse season comes up is September. So and like I said, every year, like clockwork, it's like March, April, September, October, like that timing. So that's kind of like what I would say, like overall in the year, what I'm seeing. And it really depends person to person, to be honest, because like some people might be like, oh, it's just terrible for everyone. But I'm like, depends on what you're doing. Depends on your reality. It depends on your little matrix that you built around yourself. So that's also why I'm like, oh, I don't really want to give like this is going to happen for everybody. But I will say, like I said, eclipse season hits everyone in very different ways. So that's kind of the thing to look at in the future.
Well, the good news about this is we have your contact info. We'll put underneath the show notes, et cetera. So if you want to reach out to Sophie and get a personalized reading so you know what's up in your chart, in your life, and with your kids, that'll be nice and easy to do. I am so excited to have had this conversation. I can't wait for more. And I definitely am going to get some time with you to dig into mine. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Um, last little couple of questions I have here. These are kind of more rapid fire. Do you believe in aliens, Sophie?
Yes, for sure.
And tell me more. Like, this is my favorite topic, by the
Yeah.
way. Aliens is my thing.
Really?
Yeah, I love
Um,
aliens.
so I'm really into past life regression stuff. Like have you read Dolores Cannon?
Yeah, and I actually had someone on my show not too long ago, who Urine DeWitt,
Uh-huh.
who was trained by her.
Yes, I saw that.
Yeah.
So I and like when you listen to all these different past life regressions, you hear of people inhabiting these different time space dimensions, not as humans, and like alien experiences. And so I like fully believe that. Like I said, our capacity of knowledge is like so limited. Like we don't know what we don't know, but like how can one explain like things that happen that are unexplainable, you know?
Hmm.
And so I it's interesting because like I believe in aliens, I believe in ghosts, I believe in spirits, I believe in all of that. Have I had like an alien experience personally that I can recall, right? That I can remember? No. But like I definitely believe they exist, just like how I believe spirits and ghosts and like all that also exists as well in in our realm. So yeah, I'm
That's
definitely
so
a
cool.
firm believer.
Okay, good. Well, I'll keep you posted on any alien sightings I have. I have aliens on my vision board this year, which
Mhm.
is why I want to talk to you privately, like deep dive, because I'm like, what's up with this alien thing? Like, I swear there's something alien related that's going to happen this year. I'm like convinced of it.
Mhm. Well, if it
Um,
happens, it's gonna happen in September.
I hope so because that's right around my birthday. So you said September 7th is when the
Mhm.
next eclipse is happening. That's a week after my birthday, which would be perfect. The aliens are coming to celebrate with me for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And then I always ask this to everybody that comes on the show. If someone's in mental health crisis, like,
Mhm.
what's one word of advice that you would give them to help shake them out of it?
Um, reach out to like don't be afraid to reach out and get help, whether it's literally a hotline. Like if you're like, I have no one, I have no one.
Hmm.
You have a phone number hotline you can call. And that's just like being able to like have, I think I read somewhere or saw on Instagram somewhere like having 12-minute conversation with someone can change your life when
Hmm.
you're in like, I want to kill myself. And so I'd say, I think we've all been in really tough places before, some more severe than others. But anytime anyone's ever, if you're ever in a severe place like that and you feel like you really have no one, that's not true. There's a reason why these resources exist. Um, or, like I said, always reach out to like a friend or a family member that you know is somewhat going to be able to hold space or be there for you for a 12, like a 10 to 12-minute conversation. So that's definitely something I would really encourage, especially if you don't have the time or resources. Everyone has 12 minutes though. So
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, I love that. I ask that question literally to like every person that comes on the show, and the common theme, which I think is so real in practice, is even if like you just don't have anyone to call and you're not filling the hotline situation, like getting up and getting out of like the cycle that you're in, like, is when you're down that train of thought of like just being miserable and just not having a good time, I'm sure you're sitting down somewhere and I'm sure you're stuck there thinking about it. And it's just like, why don't you get up and go for a walk outside?
Mhm.
Just break the pattern of
Yeah.
the loop that's in your brain and interrupt it with something else. And so
Mhm.
I love that idea of just,
Yeah.
even if it's a hotline, like
That's
pick up the
even
phone,
12
have a
minutes on the phone can
conversation.
break
Yeah,
you out because that's how quick
100%.
the mind is like the ego and the mind is so funny. It literally like the attention that it takes to like move on to the next thing. It's so quick. It really
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And or you could download your app and you could do something fun with that
Yeah.
time. If you're not having a good time, why don't you spend that a little bit of time shifting it onto something fun and positive and see what your
I've got
astrology
mantras
holds.
on there. And like for me, mantras really help like saying something repeatedly over and over and
Yeah.
over again,
Love
like
that.
helps a lot. And so when I'm in a really bad funk, I'll um turn on like an Om mantra and just have it
Mm.
on loop. It's like a 30-minute loop. And I mean, it's probably one of my now top played Spotify lists, but like hearing it over and over and over again, and it like really does do something because it's sound vibration. And so for me, I'm like, maybe I don't want to talk to anyone, but I'm like not in a good headspace, I just turn on my little and it like has a frequency thing or whatever, and it really just will get me out of a funk because it's like self-hypnosis or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I'm actually, now that you mentioned that, I'm trying to think, as I look at my own mental health journey, like one of the biggest turning points in my life of regaining control of my brain and stopping the thoughts from running away with myself is the YouTube. I like had just put in positive affirmations, and I was listening to positive affirmations over and over, and it was just like the silliest stuff. It was just like, I am worthy, I
Yeah.
am loved, right? Like just on loop in my headphones while
Yeah.
I'm working throughout the day. That literally changed my life.
Yeah.
Like it just kind of it reprogrammed instead of the negative stuff you tell yourself all the time. Like it truly did reprogram my brain to get me to a point where I could now be open to other things, other ideas, other solutions,
Yeah.
where I wasn't just caught in a negative loop. So I do love that.
Yeah.
What is the name of your app, by the way?
It's called REHA, REHA.
REHA. Is it on the App Store? Like just
Mhm.
regular, amazing. Guys, run, don't walk. Run and go download
And it's
that. I'm going to
free.
download it
Like
right after the show.
you don't have to pay anything. It's free. And you get like 3 compatibility reports for free. You can do for anyone, like for your friend, for your, partner, for your child. So, yeah.
Done. Sign me up. I'm doing
Mhm.
it right after this.
Yeah.
Well, I am so grateful for your time. I can't wait to have you back again. We're gonna have to keep like doing this regularly to get the latest and greatest updates. I'm definitely scheduling a one-on-one, and I cannot wait to have this published. What's a way that people can reach out to you and connect with you?
Instagram's probably the easiest. And then I have a Calendly link. You can just directly book. And I have like various different sessions across different price points. Oh yeah, but Instagram, email, or just directly booking with me. Yeah, all of
What's
that.
your Instagram handle?
Sophie S. Juan. So
All
it's
right,
just
I'll
nice and easy.
hyperlink it in the show notes below to make it accessible and easy for you guys listening at home. Thank you so much for your time, Sophie.
Thank you so
It
much for
was
having me. It was so
ton of nuggets of
fun.
wisdom. Yeah, let's do it again sometime.
Yeah.
Thank you, and we'll see you guys later. Thanks for listening to today's episode. If you enjoyed the show, please take a moment to hit the like button, subscribe, leave a comment, share it with someone you love. It helps me out more than you can imagine. Thank you again so much for tuning in, and I can't wait to see you next time.